First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. When I went through the program, admittedly using Google Translate, I'm quite happy to see that this is a very relevant conference, and I'm happy to share my contribution. I will lead you through a short presentation about our agency, EUSPA, and also about the opportunities that we provide for the audience also in this room. First of all, EUSPA, it's a new agency, but it has a history. We were before, as many of you might know, we were before the GSA, the European GNSS agency, that was in charge of EGNOS and Galileo, satellite navigation. However, last year we became the EU agency for the space program, EUSPA, and we are now in charge. Let me see. Right, this is not moving. Here we go. And we are now in charge of the EU space program, following the regulation that was issued a bit longer than 1 year ago. What does that mean? The EU space program you can see here, now under one umbrella, so you can recognize EGNOS and Galileo. As mentioned, that was the components that we were managing before. What is new is Copernicus. For the non-core users, the commercial users, GovSatcom, it's a secure satellite communication program for institutional usage, space situational awareness to know what is happening around our planet, and some others, mostly on research, innovation, and also investment. And this we will see a bit later in my presentation. Very shortly, what do we do? And I keep it really short. Exploitation, I don't like the term. What does it mean? We manage, operate, maintain basically the components that you have seen, most notably EGNOS and Galileo on a 24/7 basis, but also GovSatcom and the SSA, SST front desk, space surveillance and tracking front desk as of next year. As you can imagine, space is a critical infrastructure, and so it has an important security component where we are also playing an important role. And last but not least, and this is what I would like to focus during this short presentation, we also look at the markets, and we are pushing for user uptake for the components that you can see here. Very briefly, of course, as an EU agency, we follow the EU agenda, and basically everything we do will fall under one of these 4 priorities: stronger Europe, the European Green Deal, digital agenda, and also resilience. And that means also basically making sure that the space sector remains competitive and innovative. Focusing on the market, and this is why we are here, and many of you are here. There's quite some success what we already have achieved regarding Galileo. We have more than 3 billion Galileo users worldwide. We are now more and more looking at Copernicus for business and private users, meaning the commercial usage of Copernicus that traditionally came more from an academic, public, scientific side. Then we look at the synergies between all of the components, most notably Galileo, EGNOS, but also Copernicus and GovSatcom. And finally, we are active in creating a new generation of EU space entrepreneurs, and that comprises also startups. So we look at the small and the not so small actors alike. And as I mentioned before, all of which in order to make the EU space downstream industry competitive. Here I will not dig further in detail. These are just some numbers that demonstrate basically what we have achieved for satellite navigation, and that we would now like to enlarge through all the components. You see the different sectors. So we are basically touching many facets of our daily lives. And we are on a good track. As said, also respecting the time, I will not dig deeper, but we are not starting on a blank page. Now, what most of you will be interested in. So we do have funding tools to stimulate innovation and to foster the EU aerospace ecosystem. And again, I would like to stress, this is including startups and SMEs, even entrepreneurs that have not yet a legal entity, but just have an idea how to become a startup. So Cassini and entrepreneurship on the left-hand side. This is indeed looking at the small companies. There I would like to stress, in particular, my EU space competition that has just opened last week for proposals. So this is a very light scheme within Cassini to basically either develop from idea prototype, or if there's already something in place, to pave the way for a prototype to the market. It's very straightforward and well accessible. Horizon Europe, that's the most known program, probably also amongst you. There I would like to stress that we will open still in October. The biggest call so far ever had for space. We talk about almost 50 million euros. So please keep your eyes open. This will appear on your radar still this month. And this is, of course, many facets and many aspects of space. But when I say space, this does not need space like up in the air, but on the ground, from farmers to ship captains to urban developers, etc., etc. Less known, but not less relevant, it's what we call fundamental elements. This is mostly looking into receivers, antennas, and chipsets. If we want to have a space uptake, then we also need to have the devices, and this program is looking at that. And we do have specific grants, mostly for aviation. So if you are an airline, if you are a small or medium-sized airport and you would like to use EGNOS to safely land your aircrafts, you can get co-funded in order to get EGNOS ready. To conclude almost, we are quite proud about the percentage of SMEs that profit from our program. Here you see the last call of Horizon Europe. As mentioned, the new call is about to come, and you will recognize that with 40% of SMEs profiting from our program, this is quite unprecedented, also comparing to similar programs, and we are proud and we keep pushing that also the small companies do profit from what we do. And second point, we are quite happy. We have a good distribution across all countries in literally all EU countries that you can see on the right-hand side. And you see some non-EU countries, the associated ones, also comprised here. I mentioned My EU Space. A reminder, this is open now. Please visit our website. What you see here are the numbers from the last call, and you will recognize the two tracks, as I mentioned briefly. If you have an idea and you would get to a prototype, this is track 1. Track 2 is for those more advanced. If you already have some prototype and you would like to push it on the market, that's track 2. There will be a similar scheme for the new call. And also here, we are quite proud that we managed to reach out basically quite balanced throughout the EU member states. Last but not least, if you have not yet subscribed to our newsletter, please do so. Visit our website. You will see a pop-up. Watch this space. This is the newsletter. And I promise you that you will have interesting information at your fingertips. And as promised, I wanted to be brief. Hopefully I was, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.